Oh, sorry. For a second I thought I was actually watching a full episode of Ahsoka. Where was I? I feel like I need to put a disclaimer out there before I start. Yes, I've seen all 4 seasons of Rebels, and they're pretty good. Now, I didn't like it as much as the Clone Wars TV show, and this is actually going to impact a little bit of my review of Ahsoka going down the road. That being said, I feel like this season of Ahsoka felt the most like Star Wars since... we're not gonna go there.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
But does Ahsoka truly stand out from the cesspool of mediocrity, aka the Disney Plus shows? Well, it's a mixed bag for me. So let's jump right into what I enjoyed about the show, starting with an exceptional Force user. You thought I was gonna say Ahsoka, didn't you?
That is not correct.
Because my favorite character in this show is Baylen Skoll, portrayed by the immensely talented Ray Stevenson. May he rest in peace. I thought Baylen stole the show anytime he was on screen. There was this aura about him that commanded your attention. And hey, Disney actually hired a highly skilled actor. Who would have thought that it actually paid off? The nuance of his expressions paired with an imposing figure allowed for him to dominate any scene he was a part of. Maybe it's just me, but any instance where he shared screen time with Sabine, Morgan Elsbeth, or even Ahsoka herself, he made them all look like they were reading off of cue cards. Now, we've experienced positive and negative scene stealers in Star Wars TV shows before, namely Reva in Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mando in Book of Boba Fett, and Bo-Katan in Mandalorian Season 3. But Baylen was special. This was the first instance where I cared more about his journey than Ahsoka's. The idea of a rogue ex-Jedi who chooses neither the dark nor light side is so fascinating to me. Baylen is obviously still fond of the Jedi, or in his own words,
I miss the idea of it.
anytime that you can make a bad guy sympathetic and compelling, that right there is the recipe for an amazing character. Pair that with the mystery of Baylen and Shin's backstory, and it makes their presence in this season even better. I like that they retained certain traditions from the Jedi, like Shin's Padawan braid, or even the fact that their lightsabers were orange instead of red. The only way for a Force user to have a red lightsaber is to corrupt the Kyber crystal through the dark side. And the orange blades were an exceptional visual cue that Baylen and Shin were not beholden to the Jedi or Sith. Subtlety and compelling original characters in Disney Star Wars? I didn't think it was possible.
A win is a win. A win is a win. I don't care what y'all say, a win is a win.
Speaking of visuals, I'll admit that the production quality and CGI of Ahsoka was actually pretty good too. I've complained pretty often that recent Star Wars projects have fallen in love with the volume a little too much, and I'm happy to say that Ahsoka actually pulls off some impressive environments. 1 to 2 wonky backgrounds aside, I thought the lighting was adequate, and I never felt disconnected or pulled out of a scene due to poor set design. Also, I gotta shout out the space chase scene where Ahsoka and Hu Yang were on the run from Thrawn's forces in the penultimate episode. The aerial combat combined with the sound design of fighters zooming across the screen made for one of my favorite scenes in the show. Although I gotta say, the fact that I'm praising a Star Wars project in 2023 for having passable to good CGI really speaks to the drop in quality of Disney Plus Star Wars shows.
Remember, Jonah, you're talking about the good of this show. Stay focused.
Stay on target.
All right, look, come here. We gotta talk about Hayden Christensen.
This is where the fun begins.
That man did not miss a beat returning to his iconic role of Anakin Skywalker. At first glance, I was worried, because he seemed a bit too digitally touched up in the world between worlds, but once episode 5 came around, ooh boy, that man was looking good. I'm grateful he returned as more than just a cameo. Member berries and old characters showing up just because of nostalgia doesn't really work for me anymore. Nostalgia by itself gets old quick, especially when it's an easy cop-out to cover up script writing flaws. So I liked that Anakin's purpose was to motivate Ahsoka into moving forward and not getting hung up in her past failure. Also, yeah, those Clone Wars flashbacks were pretty cool, weren't they?
You lack conviction.
Personally, I'd be happy if Anakin and Ahsoka consisted of 80% of this show, but Dave Filoni wanted to make a live-action Rebels Season 5, for better or for worse, which actually leads me into what I didn't enjoy as much about this season. Starting with Dave Filoni. Filoni has done incredible work with the animated Clone Wars and Rebels TV shows. He's a great visionary creator and truly gets the essence of what makes Star Wars Star Wars. That being said, I don't think his transition to live action has been quite, how do I say this? Smooth. When it comes to his world building, set design, and original characters, I got no issues. However, live action should be handled way differently than animation. For example, look at the animated Lion King movie and compare it to the godforsaken live action remake. Animation allows for over-the-top expressions, which convey a wide variety of emotions. It can also visually supercharge and enhance environments and locations. But when films transition into live action, most of that charm gets lost due to the constraints of realism. To compensate, there needs to be a focus on more tighter scripts, which makes the characters more dynamic and interesting, along with the equally important mission of finding creativity behind the camera. And I don't believe Dave Filoni has quite figured out that balance yet, which leads me to my next gripe, the pacing and script of Ahsoka. In my opinion, this show is boring. And not the kind of boring that people think Andor was. Andor had complex dialogue and carefully constructed episodes that didn't require a flashy cameo every episode to make it interesting. Andor also felt like it was written by a team of skilled scriptwriters, while Ahsoka felt like it was written by a bunch of fanboys with action figures. This leads to cool set pieces that look great on a YouTube thumbnail, but offers very little depth and begins to unravel if you spend more than 2 seconds thinking about the story. This lack of attention to the dialogue, in my opinion, is what made Ahsoka beyond boring at some parts. It's like watching paint dry and golf at the same time. Characters say something, and then there's a 4 to 6 second pause, and then another character replies with some on-the-nose dialogue while crossing their arms. This happens through the entire show, by the way. It's frustrating because this could have been easily preventable with some script rewrites and better direction. I feel bad for Rosario Dawson, because she's an incredible actress and the perfect choice to play Ahsoka, but I just don't know what happened with her acting in this series. I get that Ahsoka should be older and more stoic at this point in time, but in this show, she feels more emotionless than anything. Whether she finds out Morgan Elsbeth escaped from prison, Sabine loses the map to Thrawn, when Sabine gets stabbed, I mean shoot, all you have to do is look at this picture, and you'd get a pretty good feel for what her expressions are for the majority of the series. I wish I could say that was the only case during this show, but pretty much everyone else acts like a plank of wood as well. Shout out to Baylen and Ezra though, y'all were the few exceptions. It sucks because there's some great emotional potential buried in all of these characters, but the script lacks the nuance and depth it needs to explore said emotions. It's the classic conundrum of telling rather than showing, and Filoni seems to severely underestimate us as the viewer. I mean, Hera, Ahsoka, and Sabine awkwardly just stand around and talk about how they're feeling, and this completely drains the dialogue of any form of subtlety. Not to mention that the show doesn't pick up much momentum until the 5th or 6th episode. And yes, this is an 8-episode season. That is not a good thing.
Not great, Bob.
Now, I'd be remiss if I neglected to mention Thrawn in this review. Visually, I thought he looked great. Considering he's like 70 years old in this, it kind of makes sense why he looks like space Elon Musk. Also, Lars Mikkelsen was perfectly casted as the Grand Admiral, considering he was already the voice of Thrawn in Rebels. However, I question his decision making throughout the Ahsoka show, mostly because of his hyped up levels of intelligence. Weird, right? Considering that's his most famous trait? Over the years, I've seen scriptwriters really struggle with the type of intelligent characters like Thrawn, because if he's written to be too powerful, then the heroes don't stand a chance. If he's written to be too weak, then he's no longer a commanding threat. This leads to a decent amount of Thrawn's lines in the Ahsoka show being things like, "I let the heroes get away, even though I could have killed them on the spot, because it's all part of my plan." I don't think it was too distracting in this show, but it is worth mentioning. To be honest, I do think that Star Wars desperately needs a massive threat like Thrawn right now. I just hope he's utilized to his full potential in the upcoming Heir to the Empire movie. There was one element of this show that I truly disliked above all the others, and it's no contest. The live action iteration of Sabine Wren is one of the most annoying and frustrating characters in all of Star Wars.
Why are you pulling me? I'm right.
Now, this has nothing to do with the actress who plays her. Natasha Borodizzo's job is to execute the wishes of the director and read off of a script. That being said, the character Sabine doesn't get off that easily. She gets away with doing basically whatever she wants in this show with 0 consequences, and I just can't let that slide. She disobeys orders from Ahsoka multiple times, selfishly chooses to sacrifice the safety of the entire galaxy just to see Ezra, refuses to tell Ezra about the imminent danger that she caused, and she willingly works with the enemy. In case you were wondering, that is not how you make a protagonist likable. I can already see the comments saying things like,
But in Rebels, she was also overconfident and arrogant, and she was awesome.
and to that I would agree, but also say that not all character arcs are created equal. Yeah, she might have been incredible in Rebels, but in this live action Ahsoka show, I found her to be quite insufferable.
A few moments later.
So I'm gonna talk about the finale now, and I'm about to do something that I don't normally do on this channel. Rant. If you haven't seen the finale yet, I'm about to talk about some major spoilers, so watch this segment at your own risk. All right, here we go.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening.
So Thrawn sends out his ground troops to kill Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra when they were already pinned down at gunpoint in the previous episode. Why did Thrawn withdraw his troops in that episode if he wanted them dead? Ahsoka vindicates Sabine for all of the dumb decisions she made by just telling her she's done well. Thrawn would have never escaped if Sabine just used her brain for 2 seconds. So all of a sudden, Sabine can just use the Force at will. She goes from being Force deficient to being able to do crazy things like Force push, Force pull. She's able to Force lift Ezra up onto Thrawn's leaving ship, and all because she just got a pep talk from Ahsoka? What did the Night Sister ritual really do for Morgan Elsbeth other than give her eyeshadow and a ninja sword? Also, Ahsoka is cornered by Morgan and a battalion of night troopers, but none of the troopers fire one single shot until Sabine shows up to save the day. Thrawn wanted Ahsoka dead. She's a sitting duck, you incompetent nincompoops. Baylen and Shin's resolution is not only abrupt, but gets demoted to the final recap at the end like some sort of afterthought. The Mortis reference of the father and son was pretty cool. I'll give him that. So Ezra manages to get on Thrawn's ship and then manages to escape right after that to be reunited with the Republic? Is Thrawn really that stupid? Wouldn't he have noticed that one of his ships was departing? Also, if the Night Sisters can sense Force users, why didn't they sense that Ezra was on the ship? Anakin's Force ghost appearing at the end raises several questions for me. Why wasn't he a ghost in the World Between Worlds? Why didn't he appear to Luke in the sequel trilogy? If he can appear to Ahsoka, then why can't he provide guidance to his own son? I wish I could celebrate Anakin returning as a Force ghost, but this scene felt like a cheap trick to attempt one last time to give us a nice nostalgia hit so we get a nice serotonin boost while the credits roll.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Okay, I think I'm good. Let's wrap this up, shall we? While this season of Ahsoka proved that there's still room for creativity and world building in a galaxy far, far away, I found myself disappointed with the undercooked story, shallow characters, and enough plot conveniences to fill up a Sarlacc pit. Ahsoka is still a good show, don't get me wrong, but ultimately just having a passing grade is a bummer, when the potential for so much more is just within reach. But what did you think? Did Ahsoka deliver exactly what you wanted, or were you left feeling somewhat disappointed? Sound off in the comments below and let's get a conversation going. If you're new to my channel, welcome in. Definitely consider leaving a like and subscribing if you enjoyed the video. But with all of that out of the way, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
A few minutes later.
Oh shoot! I just realized that I forgot to turn my sign on at the very beginning of the video. Ta-da!